it'll be even more historic if something comes of it, something very important.
Well, Stephen McDonnell has been monitoring events from Seoul for us and joins me now. Stephen, you mentioned that the conversation is in full flow there in Seoul. What are people saying?
Well, I think people have, like in Seoul, like everywhere, have been taken by surprise with the speed of this. I mean, more than a little over 24 hours ago, we didn't know that any of this was going to happen. And then all of a sudden, Donald Trump tweets this invitation to the leader of North Korea to just pop down to the demilitarized zone and shake hands with him. And surprise, surprise, Kim Jong-un actually turns up. I guess, in a way, this unconventional approach has worked for him. Another way of looking at it is that Kim Jong-un doesn't lose anything by doing this. It's not that hard for him to get from Pyongyang down to the heavily demilitarized zone. He didn't have to give up any nuclear weapons. He didn't have to close down the Yongbyon facility or anything along those lines. He just has to turn up to speak to Donald Trump. And for this reason, some critics have said that this is just sort of a stunt. It's all for television and it sort of looks more than it is. However, the flip side of that is that it could give some sort of traction. Already we're hearing from the United States President's office that within weeks some sort of talks will start to take place again between the two sides. So who knows, maybe something will come of this.
Now, there is a third player in this, President Moon, and he came into power promising a degree of re-engagement with North Korea. What does today's events, what do they mean for him?
Yes, absolutely. Moon Jae-in, when he came to power, had won in a landslide. One of his key election promises was, we are going to try and engage with the North. And this was after a failed period of trying to freeze the North out. So this former Special Forces soldier and human rights lawyer proposed some form of opening bridges of communication with the North. For this reason, he's welcomed the initiative from Donald Trump. And we heard him say today that there is no path to peace other than dialogue. And so he welcomes any dialogue because even though it hasn't delivered denuclearization, it has eased off the tension here. And remember, just a couple of years ago, when at the height of those missile tests, there was serious talk from some observers of the likelihood of war on the Korean Peninsula. And now, if you saw the body language of those three leaders today in that sort of chaotic but very friendly gathering up on the demilitarized zone, well, it's a very different mood indeed. And I think he would feel quite vindicated by this. Now, the proof of the pudding, though, is in the eating, so we'll see what comes of this. As I say, there's talks will commence, at least some sort of preparatory talks. Will it lead eventually to denuclearization? I think there are some massive stumbling blocks to, in front for that to happen, especially given that North Korea, even with the backing of China, even with Beijing saying we can give you the nuclear umbrella you need, still seems to want to have its own nuclear weapons. So even with China's backing, they're not prepared to give up nuclear weapons. Well, what could it possibly take to get them to do so?
Yeah, Stephen, we're just seeing pictures of President Trump arriving at the Osan Air Base in South Korea, where he will be addressing an audience of American troops and military officials. Lots of smartphones being waved in the air there as those people in the crowds wait for President Trump to say a few words. We're also doing the same thing here, and we'll keep across those pictures. But just before I let you go, Stephen, I wanted to ask about another country watching this closely, China, North Korea's close ally, biggest trading partner. How might they be seeing this?
Well, Xi Jinping in recent days had been calling for North Korea and the United States to open some form of dialogue again, so China would be welcoming this. And certainly we have heard from Beijing that any form of dialogue is seen by Beijing as a good thing, and so, of course, they would be welcoming this as well. Certainly at every stage of the process, then we've heard, President Xi Jinping saying this is a good thing, and I think this will be no different.
Thanks very much, Stephen McDonnell there in Seoul, and we'll leave you with those pictures. President Trump there descending to speak to an audience of military officials at Osan Air Base in South Korea.